Live from the bridge at the Launchpad Studios in Huntington, New York, it's Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Cardboard Memories, Clearview, Long Island, the law firm of Decolator, Cohen, and DePrisco, the Phoenix Tube Company, Pims Incorporated, fueling brand performance for 30 years, Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, and Soho Table Hockey. Here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to you, Mark Roseman, AJ Carter, Mike Capice, sitting here in the Launchpad in Huntington, as we do each and every Sunday on the 365 Sportscast Network. Great show lined up for you. As always, started off right off the bat with the Cardboard Memories Major League Baseball report with John Coppinger. It's sponsored by Cardboard Memories, which is one of Long Island's most reputable memorabilia retail stores for over 29 years. The owner of Cardboard Memories, Scott Stamell, is known for his knowledge and savvy of authentic autographs. He's been featured on HBO Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. Cardboard Memories possesses the honesty and integrity one would want and need from a memorabilia source. Cardboard Memories is always buying collections large and small. Check them out. You can find them at 6401 Jericho Turnpike in Comac, New York. Visit them on the web, cardboardmemories.com, or follow them on Facebook or Instagram. I have a feeling that Yankee memorabilia is maybe at an all-time low over the last couple of weeks. Very surprising. And it's interesting because the other day they had a big win, and it was one of those. And it's funny because I almost think that Boone is a manager that does his best work when all his stars are out, because when they have their full complement of the lineup, they don't do well.
That's the message of New York baseball this year.
It seems that
both
way.
Teams do well when stars are out. You know, Yankee memorabilia. I was in at Tanger Outlet yesterday, and they have a new Dick's Sporting Goods outlet there. And in the team section, it was all Yankee stuff and Sam Darnold jerseys.
So John, the big question is, first of all, this was another one of those quote unquote devastating losses. You have a pitcher that was throwing a no-hitter. You go to the pen, and it was almost like, Boone morphed into Luis Rojas and gave every Yankee fan enough ammunition. Why don't you bring in Chapman? Why don't you bring in Kurtz? Guys that are strikeout pitchers, as opposed to Britton, who is a contact pitcher, where that's the last thing you need in that situation. So thoughts on today's game?
Well, it's just another one of those baffling losses. You had the loss against the Angels, you had the loss against Houston, and now you have the loss against Boston, who you're chasing. Now you drop 3 or 4 to them. And with Chapman, yes, they need a strikeout pitcher, but it shows you how much they don't trust Chapman nowadays. And that is a big problem. If you don't trust your closer to come in a situation where he's the perfect pitcher to be in there, that's a huge problem. And that's how. And the Yankees are so baffling because you look at their stats, you look at where they are in the league. They're kind of middle of the road in hitting, but offensively they've been good the last week. And you look at their pitching overall, their pitching stats have been okay. They've been near the top of the league in terms of starting pitcher WAR, and even relief pitcher WAR. They're not bad, but they're just blowing every game. It is a baffling year.
John, how much worse is it made by the fact that the Red Sox are doing so well? If you look at their record, the Yankees are above 500. They're 4 games above 500 right now. In other divisions, they're probably doing a lot better. It looks worse because their chief rival is doing so much better.
And not only their chief rival is doing so much better, their chief rival is doing better because the Yankees have problems beating them. They beat them 2 out of 3 in the stadium, but before that, they were 0-6, and now they dropped 3 out of 4 in Fenway. It stings a little bit because it's Boston, but even if it was Baltimore, if Baltimore was up in first place, it would sting because they can't beat them. They can't beat the teams in front of them. They can't beat Boston. They can't beat Tampa. And now Tampa makes the trade for Nelson Cruz, so they hit a valley a little bit, but now with Cruz, they seem to be on the upswing again. They're right there with Boston. And until the Yankees beat them, it's not even a conversation. They're not even in the conversation in the division this year.
Forget about Zach Britton coming into the game. Why is Loai Siga coming in after being 2 weeks on the COVID list and pitching the night before, when you have a guy like Green who had a night off and is seemingly better fit for that situation?
Yeah, another baffling decision. Green did have the meltdown. I think he was the one that had the meltdown against Houston.
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken. So again, I mean, are you saving? Do you not trust him, or is it the other way? Are you just saving Green for the 9th? And that's a problem too, because if you're saving Green for the 9th, then you're not you're sacrificing the present for the future, and you sacrifice the game for a 9th inning that wound up not existing.
So let's look ahead to the trade deadline, and you're the Yankees. Are you sellers? Are you buyers? Who do you dangle? Is Gleyber Torres the most likely to leave? And are you looking for pitching, or are you looking for Trevor Story?
I don't know if Trevor Story is going to help them if they get him. You talk about, Mark said it in the beginning, when they're at a full complement of health, they don't play as well as they have been outside of the meltdowns. Why? Because they're too right-handed and they're too all or nothing in terms of power. Trevor Story's not going to fix that problem, as good as he is. That seems like almost a late 80s, early 90s Yankee move. Let's get another star. Let's get a big bopper in there to help the lineup, when really they need rotation help. And as it turns out, they need bullpen help. But it's going to be so competitive a market for bullpen, especially if the Yankees decide, well, let's just go get another closer. Let's go dangle our chips and get Craig Kimbrell. If they do that, it might help, but it's going to be so competitive. If I'm the Yankees, I truly think about selling. I think in the end they don't do anything.
Lastly, we take a look at the New York Mets. They pulled off an early trade prior to the deadline, picked up lefty pitcher, pitched well today. You can't fault Rojas for putting him out there, even though it was the 3rd time through the lineup. He was in the mid-40s as far as pitch count.
If J.D. Davis doesn't have that brain freeze and throw home, it's a different game.
No, it's not. They still score. It's a double play. They're not that.
Yeah, but it's still a different situation.
No, it's first of all, they win the game.
Right.
They win the game.
Well,
and by the way, I just have to call you on this. If we were doing San Francisco talk radio, would you be going crazy that the San Francisco Giants have lost a series to the Pittsburgh Pirates? Because they might even get swept today.
I would be going crazy because the Pirates are not. Well, the Pirates are up and coming, but still.
But yet,
yes, I'd be going crazy.
But the Mets lost a series to the Pirates, but then they won a series against a very, very good Blue Jay team. Yeah. So, and that wouldn't have made a difference. Even if he gets a double play, they didn't score anymore. They scored the 3 runs. It was a non-factor. All right. So the question was, are you surprised that the Mets were able to get a quality pitcher who will be, he might be a guy out of the bullpen in the playoffs as well, in Rich Hill?
Yeah, absolutely. But not really surprised at that, because they wanted him. They were linked to him in the offseason before he went to Tampa. So I wasn't surprised that they got him, and they got him for a good price. Tommy Hunter will miss his press conferences, but Tommy Hunter and a Double-A catcher for a guy that can give you 5 innings when they were spending two days out of every 5 going with TBA or bullpen games. Robert Stock, God bless him, but he was only going to go 3 innings at best for you starting. They needed a guy who could get you some innings. Rich Hill is a guy that can do that. He can get you 5. And a 5 and fly is fine. And he's a guy who's competitive. So he's going to want in there, and he's going to battle until the end.
Especially
I think it's a
since
very good
left-handed pitcher just broke his foot while walking.
Right, yeah, and that's it. So they're definitely going to need Hill going forward, and maybe they need one more starter. I think the key, though, Carlos Carrasco had a very good outing in Syracuse today, so let's see what happens when he comes back. When he comes back to the rotation, and if he could slide in and give him some innings, I think it's off to the races for the Mets, honestly.
All right, Johnny, we'll speak to you next week. John Coppinger heard here each and every week on the 365 Sportscast Network on Sports Talk New York. Quick break on the other side. Former New York Met General Manager Omar Minaya joins us, so keep it tuned right here.
Do you own a business? When is the last time you actually had a visit from or even spoke with your insurance representative? Did your current insurance agency sell to another firm or maybe merge, leaving you without the attention you deserve? Prince Associates is a provider of commercial insurance nationwide and represents some of the finest insurance carriers in the industry. Prince Associates has been representing commercial clients since 1965, and we continue to grow and offer our personal services in a competitive and ever-changing market. If you want back the insurance relationship you deserve, reach out to us, 516-822-6550. That's area code 516-822-6550. And ask for Leith or Craig, or find us on the web at www.princeins.com.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. on the 365 Sportscast Network. We're glad you're joining us. And joining us now is a man who, after moving from the Dominican Republic to Queens at the age of 8, started as a baseball player in the shadow of Shea Stadium at Newton High School in Elmhurst. He was drafted by the Oakland Athletics in the 14th round, 342nd overall of the 1978 Major League Draft. His playing career featured stints in the minor leagues as well as stints in leagues in both the Dominican Republic and Italy. He became baseball's first Hispanic general manager in 2002 when appointed vice president and general manager by the Montreal Expos. He served as the general manager of the Mets and the San Diego Padres and is currently serving as an ambassador for the New York Mets. It is a pleasure to welcome the man who selected Jacob deGrom in the 9th round of the 2010 draft, the one and only Omar Minaya to Sports Talk New York. Hey, Omar, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How's it going, big guy? How's everything?
Always doing great. Always great. Always great to speak to you as well. And before we talk about how front offices across baseball prepare for the week of the trade deadline, we just wanted to touch on a little bit about your background, as I don't know how many people know how good a baseball player you actually were. You were an Iron Horse Award winner, which goes to New York's best athlete in each sport. During your 4 years in Newton, you led the team in RBIs, home runs for 3 years, had batting averages of .406, .431, .530, and .488. But the thing that impressed your coach, Warren Albert, the most was your leadership skills. So where does your leadership foundation come from?
Well, I think a lot has to do with I always want to say go back to your parents, but it just your parents teach you to try to do everything right, to be able to treat others the way you want to be treated. And I think you just, growing up in New York, growing up in the schoolyards of New York, you learn to bring people together, or you are involved in putting games together, all kinds of things. But I just think that you're kind of just something that I think you try to care for others, and you try to do the right things, and that's really what, for me, sometimes what leadership is.
So you had scholarship offers from South Carolina, Mississippi, Nevada, St. John's, and Lamar University. Why did you choose to go directly into pro ball as opposed to those colleges?
Well, I think really it was a dream of mine to play professional baseball. Growing up, all of us, I think, have a dream at that time to be able to play professional baseball, to be able to get a little bit of money as a signing bonus and be able to share that money and provide for your family. My goal was always to play in the major leagues and to play professional baseball. So it was the opportunity was given there. I was very fortunate. There was a scout by the name of Ralph DeLulo, a guy from Paterson, New Jersey, legendary scout from Jersey that took me on as drafted me and signed me and guided me. And so it was at the time, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help my family, and I wanted to play pro ball.
The only thing that like bums me out about that is because you were both an outfielder and catcher in high school, and had you gotten to go to St. John's, you probably would have been the catcher for that legendary Frank Viola, Ron Darling game, and that would have been pretty awesome. It would have been one of those full circle moments for sure later in your career.
Well, that was a good team. We used to play against those guys. I faced Frankie Viola. I think Frankie was from East Meadow. Faced Johnny Franco, who was in that team. I remember some of those guys. Ronnie Leclario, who ended up being a great basketball coach, still is a basketball coach at Cardoso, one of the winningest coaches in public school history. So a lot of those guys we would play. I used to play with the Flushing Tigers, and they were playing with the Long Island Mets. But we had a lot of friendship, a lot of competitive games. And you're right. I remember hearing about Ronnie Darling and the great job and the great games that him and I believe Viola matched up. And I believe it was in St. John's that game.
Yeah. So we mentioned your short-lived career in the minor leagues as well as a stint in the Dominican Republic and Italy. As injuries derailed your road to the majors, what did those stops add to your talent evaluation skills and baseball skills playing in those foreign leagues?
Oh, I think they helped me a lot. I think what it does, it helped me a lot in opening up about the game, as far as learning about the game, learning about people, learning about, for me, one of my biggest stops was playing in Europe, playing in Italy, learning different cultures, learning different people, learning different, language, opening up and really earlier on as the game became more and more diverse, as you notice, look at now, You see the game, the great internationalism of the game. When you look at the All-Star game, look at the great players. The game is really not only baseball, but look at basketball. What happened today with France beating the United States. I think it was an early introduction to what sports was going to be, in the 90s, 2000s, and beyond. And I was able to, but not only the sports part, but just to be able to form a different a relationship with people, be open-minded about things, and be able to interact and adjust.
So you also acted as a general manager for a Texas Rangers-sponsored team in the Dominican Republic. You're instrumental in the signing of players such as Sammy Sosa, Juan Gonzalez, and Ivan Rodriguez. What impressed you about those players at such an early age, and did they meet or exceed your expectations as major leaguers?
Well, they definitely exceeded my expectations as major leaguers because really, I was a young scout at the time, and I was just learning along the way. Yes, I have an inkling for seeing talent, but at that time, I would have never thought those guys were going to be that great. So to me, what I did see in them was the ability. They just had something different than the other kids that we were recruiting. Either they were looser, they would do something, maybe throw the ball harder, run faster, or hit the ball farther. But the way they did it easy. They did it, they had easy strength, and they were fluid. And I was very fortunate to learn, like I mentioned to you before, about Ralph DeLuno, but also guys like Sandy Johnson, Brian Lamb, who's an area scout who gave me an opportunity. Those guys, I was very fortunate to have great mentors to learn to what to look for in players.
So your success with Texas leads to a position on the staff of the New York Mets, where you work your way up to assistant general manager behind Steve Phillips. You play a big role for that team's late 90s success. You then became the first Hispanic to hold the general manager position in Major League Baseball when you left the Mets in early 2002 to accept the general manager position with the Expos. So a couple of questions here. First, what does this distinction mean to you? And then secondly, you mentioned the diversity in baseball these days, but it's been 19 years since you were the first, general manager. There hasn't been a lot of Hispanic GMs over the years. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'd like to answer your first question, but let me see how I go about this. First of all, it meant a lot to me because at the time, I was given an opportunity. I started off as an area scout. I was a coach in the Gulf Coast League, and then worked my way up to be the general manager through the New York Mets, meaning being an assistant with Steve, and learned along the way. I learned from Tom Grieve. I learned from other general managers that I have. I learned from Doug Melvin, who was great, and Steve Phillips. We worked together. And then, of course, being the first Hispanic, that meant a lot because you know what it is. It's just, I was fortunate the commissioner of baseball, but he put me in that position and gave me that opportunity, that meant that hopefully you can give others opportunities and others can look and say, hey, there's not only a Hispanic kid, but a kid from New York, any kid from Queens or Bronx or New York, any inner city kid can be, hey, look, this guy did it, a bunch of, went to PS19 and I can do it. So that kind of meant a lot to me, not only because I was Hispanic, but because of where I came from. That being said, there have not been others, but I believe Al Avila has been the other one that has been is a Hispanic who's with the Detroit Tigers. And I believe there are others that are out there that hopefully will be given the opportunities, and they'll look at myself and they'll look at Al and say, hey, these guys did it. And there will be opportunities for them. I do believe that, I'm very excited about the youth as far as diversity that we have in the game. There's a lot of talented young guys out there, and hopefully they'll just stay positive, and hopefully that opportunities will happen to them.
So after your time with the Expos, you return to the Mets, this time as general manager. You lead them to the 2006 National League Championship. Your fingerprints are all over the 2015 team. As a general manager in baseball, what is the one accomplishment you're most proud of?
Wow, great question. I mean, I don't know if there's one. I will tell you what, just leading that Expos team to be able to be competitive those years in 2002 and 2003, to be able, when I was first given the job as the commissioner, we had no employees and we had to build an organization from bottom, really for nobody, and had to do it in a very quick time and be able to sustain that situation, because it was somewhat volatile because of the time. There was the potential the team can be contracted. To be able to bring that together, to be able to put a group of people together, and really, I don't know if it's been myself, but just the group. I still talk to Tony Siegel, who's my assistant, and Tony Tavares, who's the president. And all of us feel that's one of the most fun jobs that we have, one of the most difficult jobs, but one of the most fun jobs together.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the baseball trade deadline as it's rapidly approaching. What's the timeline like for a team? And obviously it's changed because you keep on adding different layers of playoffs, but what's a timeline where a team has to determine whether they're a buyer and seller?
There is no timeline. It's just a matter of a feel. You got to have a feel, and you got to feel your team out. You got to feel how, this team. Sometimes you may be leading and you say, I don't think this team has it. It's there is not a specific timeline. I will tell you that you build up to you look at the next 2 weeks, or go into the trading deadline. You see where you are in the standing. You see how you're playing. And you really get a gut feel of how your team is and what are your weaknesses and all those things. So a specific timeline, but I always go, but you got, if you want to look as close as you can, I think those last 2 weeks before the deadline are weeks that will kind of give you an idea of where you want to go with your team.
Omar, this is AJ Carter. As the trade deadline approaches, teams who feel they're in contention always balance the pressure to win now versus having to mortgage the future to make a trade that improves the ball club. You made one of those trades in 2002 when you got Bartolo Colon, but gave up prospects Cliff Lee, Grady Sizemore, Brandon Phillips, and Lee Stevens. Especially Lee, but also Sizemore and Phillips went to productive major league careers. What were the dynamics that led up to that trade? If you have to do it over again, would you have made it?
Oh, yeah, definitely made it again. And that wasn't done in the trade line. That was done, I believe, in June, if I'm not mistaken. And I do believe at the time it would be considered, first of all, that what made the key thing to that was that the team was going to get contracted at the end of the year. So if the team is going to get contracted, what good were those players going to be to you if they were in AA and A ball? There was not much value because you're going to be contracted. They were going to be part of the draft. So to me, to do it again without a doubt, because we were in contention, and we ended up being in contention in September. So to me, and that was the situation. That wasn't a long-term situation. There was no long-term for the Expos at that time, at that moment. So what good is long-term prospects if you're not going to be around?
Right. That's so interesting. Now, another thing that's come into play is every single baseball team has an analytics department. When you start putting things together, how far in advance do you need to start? You said there is no timeline for a trade deadline, but realistically, when you start having these conversations, you have to go back to the analytics department and say, all right, we've got this in the fire. How does this project going forward?
Yeah, I think you always listen. So when I say there's no timeline, and you make a decision to say we're going to give to make a trade or be buyers or sellers, that's a total different than what's going on behind the scenes. You are always looking for trades to make. If you are an active general manager, you are pushing your scouts, you're pushing your data people, you're connecting with other people, always to look for opportunities, windows of opportunities to do something. Okay, there's always, so your guys are always engaged. And I will tell you that sometimes trades are done that really done on the 31st, but they probably were trades that were not done last winter. But they were the work had already been done, and for whatever reason, we didn't get the trade done on the trading deadline, or they were in the winter meetings or that. So now all you do is pick up from all the information that you had back then.
So back in the day, you're looking at a player interest, you send a major league scout out, and they'd watch the player, they send back a report. Today you have the analytics department. Has the growth in analytics reduced the importance of the major league scouts, or is it still a balance? How does that work?
No, I think it's a balance. I think listen, everybody can do it the way they want to, but I do believe the why smart teams, the way to do it right is information. All you can do is getting different type of information. I think this day and age, I think all the data information that you're getting, new data that's being created, I think it's all good for the game. I think that the traditional evaluator is still there. It's all depending how much you want to use it. I'm of the belief that you use both, and I do believe that you have a lot of young, intelligent player. I don't want to say kids, but just personnel that is able to give you new ideas, new perspective, new data. This is what it says, and this is why you can measure. And believe me when I say that data can be measured more at the major leagues than maybe it's measured down when you're doing a draft, because you have more data, we have more volume of information for more predictability of what the outcome is going to be. But you also have the hardcore traditional evaluator to see how the body is doing, what things are doing that may not be there, that may not be quantified.
So to piggyback on that, one thing that data you can't quantify is team chemistry. You take a look locally at this New York Met team, okay? And there's definitely something going on with this team, whether it be the bench mob or just when J.D. Davis comes back from injury, how he's ground running. Brendan Nimmo's been back. Do you run the risk? You're in first place. Yes, there are definite needs. Do you run the risk of trading a guy that might even be a role player, like a Pilar, for example, packaging him in a trade to get maybe a pitcher or maybe to get that another star? Do you run the risk of ruining team chemistry, even though analytically it might be a great trade?
It all depends on who it is. You know what I'm saying? I do believe the team in 2015, I know when the team, and just looking at it from a distance, I believe they brought in the guy Johnson. I believe it was Kelly Johnson the Braves. And they brought in, there was another guy, Latin kid from the Braves, pinch hitter, right-handed bat. I think they brought those two names in. And
Julio Franco?
No, it wasn't Julio.
He brought Franco.
He was a big, great chemistry guy. Julio was big,
Yeah, that was.
I believe it was. Oh my God! It was some pinch hitter, infielder guy that I know was great. So that being said, you have to you do have to be careful on who are some of the guys that you are extracting. But this time of year, you got to put everybody on the table. It's just you got to measure the value that you're going to get from the impact, from the historical impact too. But it's a great question, because you do have to. There's certain guys like, look, for us, in his own way, Andy Chavez was a big guy in the clubhouse. He didn't do nothing but smile and just laugh, and people loved him. He was just a great defensive player. When those teams in 06, and the same thing. We had guys. I remember once, I believe in the year, in those years 2000, there were certain guys that meant a lot in the clubhouse. Guys that were Lenny Harris was a big guy in the clubhouse for those teams. So you have to be careful who you're extracting, but he also can be bringing in real good guys too.
So how much of a role does ownership play in a trade? Is it just the financial implications, or do they also weigh in what we call baseball decisions?
Well, each ownership group is different. There are ownership groups that are more involved than others. So there is not, as far as the financial component, I think that there will be a large part at most ownerships. Everybody, all ownerships, that's an area that you always have to be able to run through them. As far as beyond that, each group is different.
By the way, we have the answer of who that player was, courtesy of former Met Barry Lyons. It was Jose Uribe.
I was just looking at
that. Yep, that's right.
Juan Uribe. It's Juan Uribe. Juan
Uribe. Yeah. Thank you, Barry Lyons, a loyal listener. So good stuff from Barry. So with Francisco Lindor on the IL, and you have a player like Trevor Story available, possibly as a rental, could you see a scenario where the Mets trade for him, play him at shortstop until Lindor comes back, then move him over to second base or third base? Is that something that general managers look at? Just, that, all right, we have a need now, but we're not going to have that need long term, and then we can shift them over here. Is that something that's also always on the table?
Well, I mean, look, but those scenarios are very, very, how can I say this? When you're trading for big players that are rentals, and you're going to have to give up a lot, those things in this day and age in baseball become less and less.
Interesting. So a lot of talk here in New York, talk radio, was that, as the trade deadline gets closer, the price for certain players go up. But then there's another school of thought that, once a team sees that, all right, we might have overshot what we thought the market is, the price comes down. Which school of thought are you on the side of? Well,
I think, I'm of the belief that when you get a deal that you like, do it. And Look, and deals are done. So both teams. I'm always the belief: if you try to do too good of a deal, you'll never get a deal done.
So on an entirely different note, as a GM, how much impact do you put on, let's say, a Michael Conforto, who's playing now? It's his last year of his contract. Next year will be his one shot at his big free agency contract. Obviously, the season is not going the way he would like it heading into that. How much do you weigh, the mental fatigue that might be going through his mind for this contract when it comes to deciding whether you're going to re-sign him, how much money you're going to re-sign him, and what the market's going to bear for a player like his skills?
Look, I think guys like that have a history already of performing. You know what I'm saying? I do believe that Michael is going to get hot. I think he's going to get hot. I do believe that he's proven it for years. And as far as what the general, what's going to happen as far as the signing and all that, I think you're just going to have to wait till the end of the year and not only look at 1 year, but look at the volume of work that he's done.
On a broader issue, back to you. You were brought back to the Mets by Sandy Alderson and moved into an increased role when he stepped back because of his cancer diagnosis. How close was your working relationship with Sandy? And given that he took control again after the ownership change, how surprised were you to be let go only hours after Steve Cohen finalized his purchase of the team?
Well, listen, I have a long history with Sandy, and I say this that when I came back, I was I think when I came back, it was for me it was a great time to be with the Met family. I'm still with the Met family. I'm very happy to be with the Met family because I grew up with the Mets and I've always been with the Mets. And so you do what this is my new role as an ambassador. I really enjoy doing it, and I love I just love being part of the Mets family.
To piggyback on that, given that you've worked for some ownership groups that were not some of the biggest spenders, i.e. Montreal, the Wilpons at times, how much would you have liked the opportunity to be the GM under an owner like Steve Cohen?
Well, I could tell you that, when I was there with the in Montreal, yes, Montreal, we did not have the financial resources because at the time, we were restricted. But we made it work. We worked out, we did the amazing thing about those years in Montreal, there was two young kids that were in the dugout all the time. They were the clubhouse. It was a guy by the name of Tatis Jr. and the guy by the name of Guerrero. What a special experience that was. So that, but yes, we didn't have it. And I will tell you, when I was general manager here with the Mets, I was always giving whatever I needed to make the team better. So to me, that was, I says, go get Pedro, go get Beltran, go get Delgado. I was always, given the ability to go improve the team.
They talk about contraction when you were with Montreal. Now they're talking about baseball coming back to Montreal. How do you feel about that and that possibility?
Well, I think, listen, I think it's a great baseball city. I know a lot of people think of Canada and think of Montreal because of the Canadians, a great hockey city. I can tell you it is a great baseball city. Great baseball fan, historical baseball fan. Let's not forget the Montreal Royals. Let's not forget Jackie Robinson, Roberto Clemente. The history of baseball in Montreal has been great. If I'm not mistaken, they might have been the first franchise to get 2 million people in the 80s. So I hope that they do get a team because my experience with the fans in Montreal, the people there, everything about Montreal was wonderful.
So last question before we let you go. Gut feeling, do you think the Mets have one big move up their sleeve before the trade deadline comes and passes?
I do believe that. I think they're in a very good position to based upon what I'm listening to, what teams are out there, what teams are kind of selling. I think I know there's going to be some hard work done. I already see the small trades that are big trades. Like for me, I call small trade big trades. The Hill just a great pickup. It's a very good pickup, and you just saw it, and you saw what happened today. I do believe that we still have a time to go this year. I believe the trading deadline is the 30th. It used to be the 31st. We still have time to go, and I think that this, I do believe that there's going to be a way to improve the team. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't have to be big. It could be 2 small moves that make the team that could become big. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. It does not have to be a big move. It just has to be a smart move.
Guys like Uribe, Johnson, Tyler Clippard that year also was huge in that as well. So you're right. Sometimes the little moves are the ones. I mean, Kelly Johnson had some huge home runs. So did Uribe down the stretch. Yeah. So Omar, thank you so much for your time tonight. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and it's always a pleasure. Literally, I've now bumped into you 3 times at the stadium this season. Hope to see you tomorrow during the doubleheader at some point. But thanks for coming on with us tonight and breaking down the trade deadline. We love it.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much.
You got it. The one and only Omar Minaya, currently an ambassador for the New York Mets. We'll be back. My blood pressure will be going up as we'll be talking NHL hockey with Russ Cohn next.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And you know what? It's like early 70s porn music at the end of that commercial. We might have to change that musical bed.
You picked the bed.
Time for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn. It's sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might have grown up with rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey has embraced the nostalgia of those old tabletop games, designed a whole new board for the future. Handcrafted with designer wood, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a table hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit SohoTableHockey.com to learn more. Start your order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, a center ice logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing.
Just so you know, before Mark says anything, I'm heading out to find the fire extinguisher somewhere in our studio to hose him down when he gets overheated. Yeah. He's close.
Yeah. So you know what? Listen. I'm never going to not be a New York Ranger fan. Let's start with that. However, this week in the last 15 to 20 for me might have been the toughest. Listen, I understand you need flexibility financially. I don't think that you need to do that at the cost of giving away a player who's improved year after year, who is still a young player, who at worst case you go to arbitration with and can still trade him down the road, especially if you are not a viable Stanley Cup finalist, contender at this point in time. Tell me why the New York Rangers got such little in return for an asset that I believe should have gotten much better than what I consider maybe a guy that, his play. You can find those guys in the AHL and a second rounder. Please tell me why this is what they were able to get in return for Pavel Buchnevich and why they even needed to trade him at this point.
I think, and I don't have any way of confirming this, but I think they thought they were in on Eichel at that moment, because all the Eichel talk was hot right around that time. And I think they did all that in anticipation of maybe getting him. And then I think probably something broke down and they didn't get him. Like Sammy Blais, he's okay. He scores 8 goals. He won a Stanley Cup. But I get what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. But I think that was the thinking. And I think if they don't get Eichel, we might find out one day that, they were close. And I think they were worried about not having enough money. You can go 10% over on the cap in the summer, but that's it.
But here's my listen. If I hear one more person said, he won a Stanley Cup, you know what? So if Philip DiGiuseppe happened to play 35 games in a season with the St. Louis Blues, all right, and he came in return for Pavel Buchnevich, because they're really almost identical players. If Phil DiGiuseppe got 35 games on the St. Louis Blues, he put up those same numbers. Those are not numbers that jump off the page with you. And then if you're telling me that they did that, to free up money for Eichel, all right, so what do you think Buchnevich would have gotten in arbitration?
I think he'd have gotten 4.5, 4.75, something like that.
All right, 4.5, 4.75. What's Eichel's cap hit?
10.
So $6 million. You mean to tell me that Pavel Buchnevich and a player that you could sign for $6 million, and on top of it, the whole narrative is you got to get rid of Buchnevich so you can free up top 6 minutes for Lafreniere, Kakko, Kravtsov. But if that was done because you wanted to sign Eichel, then you're not freeing up anything. So you gave up a player who was pretty much under a decent cap hit number, who was going to give you, to think that you were going to go after a guy making $10 million with a neck injury. I'm sorry. If this is Chris Drury's first moves as a GM, and if he didn't accomplish what he wanted to, shame on him. What was the hurry? Why not make the Eichel trade first and then trade Buchnevich?
Well, because again, you can only go 10% over on the cap, and we don't know how close they are to a deal with Shesterkin, and I heard that deal may be a lot more costly than we all imagined.
Yeah, you know what? I just don't see. Listen, I understand getting tougher. I get that. You know what?
They went overboard on that. They did.
You could have signed Casey Cizikas, right, as a free agent
if he gets there. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, this was a hurry to unload a player who, another thing, chemistry can't be overlooked. All right. That guy was a big part of the team. Or you know what? Sign him under arbitration, let him play. And if it didn't work out, move him in a trade and then, then go after whatever you wanted to do. This to me was awful. All right. Quickly, Islanders draft, Rangers draft, Devils draft. What did you think of it?
Rangers I wasn't thrilled with. I think Brendan Othman is a decent goal scorer. I think there were better guys on the board. Some of their, Finnish picks were not fantastic. I asked a Finnish scout about the one in the 5th round. Didn't get great results. I liked getting Natu Rati for the Islanders. I thought that was a really good pick. But he does need development. He needs a little kick in the tush once in a while. But he has all the tools, so that's pretty good. So I think the Islanders did better than the Rangers in the draft. We'll know in 5 years, but I just think that's on the surface. And then the Devils, I knew they were taking Luke Hughes. Do I know that Luke Hughes is the better of the defensemen left? No, I'm not sure he was. But he's also the better marketing tool. And the Devils, unfortunately, always go with the marketing tool, too. Luke Hughes is a really good player, don't get me wrong. But he still may not have been the best choice there.
Hey, listen, the Devils are going to lead the league in bar mitzvah requests for sure. Two Jewish players on the same team, like you and I texted, could be a first in NHL history.
Just talking about the Rangers offseason so far in their draft, do you think that everything that's happening right now stems directly back to the Tom Wilson incident? Them drafting all of these tough players, these third, fourth line checking players, it's getting Sammy Blais. Do you think that almost affected their future now?
Well, it's affected the whole league. It's affecting the way the draft is going. It's affecting who teams are picking up. There were guys that were getting drafted, I felt like in the 3rd round, that were like 6th round picks, but if they're 6'4", 6'6", 220, and they had a little bit of ability, they were going for it. So I think it affected everybody, but I think it affected the Rangers a lot. And I guess the cherry on that Sunday would be if they get Ryan Reeves in free agency.
That would be that I'd be okay with. All right, Russ, we'll talk next week. Russ Cohen here each and every week with the Soho Table Hockey Report. We'll be back right after this message.
Owen and DeFrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
You can read it in the Sunday papers. Read it in the Sunday papers.
Joe Jackson, Sunday papers can only mean one thing. Time for AJ and the weird news of the week. What do you got?
And our Sunday paper today is from Dubrovnik, Czech Republic. The COVID has been the specter of COVID over the whole Olympics. In Tokyo, we've got players athletes who've tested positive, not participating. John Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau for golf, Bradley Beal, basketball, other players. Well, 6 players from the Czech Republic are now not being able to play because they were exposed to COVID, tested positive, and you do the contact tracing. The reason for that is the team doctor who wasn't vaccinated. He tested negative before, he tested positive when they landed. The question is, why didn't the team doctor get vaccinated? And as a result, the beach volleyball team had to forfeit out of the Olympics. And it's just absolutely crazy. We're looking ahead. You would think at a time when doctors are telling people to get vaccinated, around the world, the team doctor, his name is Vlastimil Voracek. Remember that name. Don't visit him. You can probably always get an appointment in his office.
So wait a minute. Which team was this now?
He's the Czech Republic.
No, which members were from what team?
Okay, well, the beach volleyball player Markaitis Lukonauch and had defaulted opening match, and there's 5 other players. I don't have their names
all from
right
the
here.
beach volleyball?
No, all from different sports. All from the Czech team.
Because I believe there are a number of Polish soccer players that are probably available. That wasn't the soccer players. What sport it was. And, I started looking into that, and it wasn't quite as cut and dried as the original report. Oh, that they counted wrong?
It was swimmers.
Oh, okay.
And the issue was there was a dispute over how many they were allowed to bring. Yes, no. It wasn't quite as the initial thing. It was swimmers. 7 swimmers on the Polish team had to be sent home because they had too many. And it was a dispute over how many they were told and who told them what when they'd be allowed to bring.
All right, so this is breaking news courtesy of Twitter. Jeff Passan, who's his track record's pretty good. San Diego Padres are acquiring second baseman outfielder Adam Frazier from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Sources tell ESPN. Frazier leads baseball in hits this year. Is not a free agent until after the 2022 season. One of the best bats on the trade market.
That's a good get for San Diego. As we remember how he played last week against the Mets in the 7 games. They have hitters on that team. Well, they had hitters on that team. Now we'll see who else goes. But that's a good get for San Diego. That's
also a very tough division. But again, that's a bat that they're going to have under control 2022.
Right.
And on top of it, it's a bat who will be playing for his contract in 2022. That's a really good get by the Padres.
Yeah.
The Mets had been linked to him as well for a little while. I don't know if he's the piece. I don't even know what.
I think. Well, we have to talk basketball in a couple of seconds. I think the Mets are going to look pitching. I think they're looking at their hitting. I think with people coming back, they're doing okay. Guillorme is hitting. And filling Lindor's spot.
I found that story. I don't know if you heard that story today on it. Is that horrible game we made all those errors, which he's normally a steady fielder. It got traced back to the fact that someone packed his bag incorrectly. And his glove was all misshapen.
I didn't see that.
And he put it on and didn't feel comfortable. He ended up after that game unstringing his entire glove, and he strung his glove himself. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. All right, let's talk NBA basketball right now.
Okay.
You're the NBA guy. Let me ask you a big question. NBA, over the last 5 to 10 years, it's always about quote-unquote legacy. All right, so the Greek Freak now, he's got a championship, great player. That's his legacy. CP3 is a great player. Was an unbelievable player. Didn't get his championship. Probably is not going to, I don't know if he's going to get
the question about CP3 was this his last shot,
right? And
what happened? And the concern you have was try as he couldn't carry the team. Was it because of the COVID that he had? Was it because he just tired out over the course of a long season? Was he has to carry too much shoulder? There's always next year. There's always the possibility. There's always the possibility he moves to another team. He's been mentioned even to the Knicks. We need a point guard. Whether I would want somebody at that age on the Knicks, I'm not so sure. But I think he's one of those players. Look, you had John Stockton, you had Karl Malone. They made it into the Hall of Fame. They never made a championship. Did it tarnish their reputation? Yeah, probably a little bit, but they still got into the Hall of Fame and Chris Paul will also. And he still got more left in his career. I think if you look at what Giannis did, you look at what the Bucks did. They came back twice from being down 2-0 in playoff series. Where they hurt Giannis, he came back. He carried the team that he was supposed to. The big three they had with Drew Holiday, they had their three there, and it just worked well. And looking ahead, what does it do in the offseason with other teams? Does it send any messages? Who's out there? It's not a great free agent class, but the Knicks are going to have to see what they can do.
So the other question is, you always look at teams that didn't make it, and you always say, well, had the Nets been healthy.
Well, the thing that I saw today was, had Kevin Durant been one shoe size smaller,
right, they would have won that game.
Would they have made it to the finals? Would they have won the championship?
Right.
It's something as simple as that. Look, you have to look ahead to next year. Are they a favorite to make it to the finals? Yes, with the asterisk. The asterisk is, how healthy can all three of them be? Kyrie Irving was out for a considerable period of time during the year. James Harden was out. Harden came back. Harden did what you want a leader on a team to do. He played hurt. Can they stay healthy all of next year? That is a huge, huge X factor, because after all, they're 1 year older.
And what does the championship mean to the Bucks? Does that give them added confidence to go on a run here where, maybe they didn't have this type of confidence, and this is the thing that spurs them, and maybe they add a piece?
I don't know, you don't want to jump and say they can go on a run. It's very, very hard for teams to go on runs in any sport, these days. It's hard to go on a run because you don't know what's going to happen in the offseason. You don't have to other teams. Who's going to, move around? Who's going to, bulk up? Who's going to get better? And who's going to be healthy next year? Certainly they're contenders. It's not like they had people who are leaving at the end of this year. They've built a team. They have a team they can be confident with going to next season. But whether they can go on a run, I don't think you can predict any team going on a run these days.
Okay, quick break. On the other side, we'll round it out with NFL talk, and then we'll hand the controls over to Brett Topel with BT Talks Baseball. So keep it tuned here all night long. If you're a company looking to increase your visibility, to make sure your promotional materials get packaged in the most attractive way and distributed most efficiently, then you need to call in PIMS. Whether you're launching a new product and need to assemble customized influencer packages, or looking for a more efficient way to manage your inventory and collateral, PIMS involvement helps maximize the impact of your brand's performance. For more than 30 years, PIMS has been helping companies get their message out to the right people, offering personalized distribution services and full-scale inventory management solutions. PIMS works its magic on 3 continents, backed by 350,000 square feet of warehouse space. If you're looking for experience, PIMS is it. They've shipped more than 13 million packages and elevated more than 8,000 brands. Want to know more? Check them out on the web, PIMSinc.com. That's PIMSINC.com, and read testimonials from their satisfied clients. That's PIMS, the first name in marketing support. And welcome back to Sports Talk New York on the 365 Sportscast Network. It's time now for the Capco NFL Report with Jay Retcher. Summer is here. It's time to get those windows and doors ready to let that fresh air in and the bugs out with a Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes standard with a lifetime warranty and a patented speed reducer so it won't snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for a free estimate. That's 631-440-1100, or visit them on the web at clearviewlongisland.com. All right, so it's official now. Aaron Rodgers has now become the Carmelo Anthony of Sports Talk New York, where we will be talking about him every single week.
Wait, do we have to? I'm getting tired of the story.
It is a big story because we're getting close, and there's no indication that he's going to show up in camp. What's the latest on Aaron Rodgers, Jay?
Yeah, I think you could ask me this question 6 weeks ago. We might have had this. Might have had the same answer, guys. I could sense it in AJ's voice. Like, come on, this again.
Yep.
But the new thing too with like him and Devontae Adams posting the Last Dance picture. Devontae and that whole situation is broken down a little bit. So
maybe this is the one last hurrah for Green Bay. I still think eventually, in a week or two, you'll see Aaron Rodgers, and then he'll go out there and he'll say, "Hey, it's no big deal. I'm out here." But man, we'll believe it when we see it. But man, just so frustrating that we still have to talk about this over and over again.
Once they tell him he's not getting the Jeopardy job, I think he'll be in camp.
Yeah, true.
The one thing that happened this week I find very interesting in the league was their new COVID policy. And the policy that says if you can't play a game because of unvaccinated people on your staff, you're going to forfeit. First of all, I find, and Minnesota, whether they did or not, they had a coach who wouldn't get vaccinated. Did they fire him? Did they not fire him? Were they working something out? Do you see the NFL following through with this policy and actually forfeiting a game and all the financial implications?
And on top of that, is it in violation of HIPAA laws?
Well, HIPAA says they can't tell. HIPAA says, but if somebody's not vaccinated and they find out,
how though?
A company can ask. It's not. They're wrong on HIPAA. They're wrong on HIPAA.
Okay.
HIPAA says a hospital can't tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, see, this is the whole thing that's going to be weird with this. You're going to have people around the league, and I know Cole Beasley's one of the guys from Buffalo that's coming out and saying, hey, he's been staunchly against it. This is something that the NFL, it's going to be a kind of a stick and move type thing all year long, because how are you going to know? I mean, we have it down here in Tampa where Leonard Fournette has been to the big point of, I'm not going to do it. And now today, as he spoke in front of the media for the first time, and now he's like, I have to do, more homework. And I think eventually he's going to do it. But it's going to be tough to make these adjustments when, guys are out there and they're saying, hey, 85% of these teams are getting vaccinated. And now there's going to be certain things where there's going to break it. This is going to be such a flowing situation, guys, where I think it's just going to keep changing every single week. I don't know if there's ever going to be a concrete answer until possibly towards the middle to the end of the season.
Every team's handling it differently, and Bruce Arians is actually having individual consultations between doctors and players. Other teams are just having a doctor come in and address the group. And if the issue is unanswered questions, I guess the teams can get questions answered, get people vaccinated. But what if you have somebody who says, I just don't want to do it, and your team forfeits a game?
Yeah, see, that's the risk that you're going to run, because now, if you're going to go unvaccinated, you're going to have these different protocols that you're going to have to go to masks. Right. You're going to be in. You're not going to be allowed
in the weight room at the same time.
Yeah, you can't be in the weight room with guys that are vaccinated. So it's going to behoove these players to get vaccinated. But what do you say to the guys that don't do it? Hey, if they're not going to get vaccinated and they're willing to go through those protocols and not be able to, do the same thing that their vaccinated teammates are going to be able to have the access to. Hey, I mean, that's just what you're going to have to. It just makes no sense to me. Why would you want to go through all that stuff, get vaccinated, and be with your team? But if you don't, and then you test positive, and then your team has to forfeit, you almost have egg on your face, and it's right in front of you. If they're right in front of you, the punishment is there. It's the NFL. It's $1 billion corporation. They can decide to do what they want.
All right, Jay, we'll speak to you next week, where Aaron Rodgers will still probably not be with the Packers. And breaking news also, Whit Merrifield looks on the way to the Mariners. Kansas City Royal, former special report here on Sports Talk New York probably 15 years ago. All right, we've got to get out of here because BT Talks Baseball is next, and Brett is dying to get up behind this mic and steward the ship for the next hour. So keep it tuned right here. We'll see everyone next week.